What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined, as always, by my trusty co-host, Dave, Pusha T, Martin Swagger. Dave, what's going on, man?
Yeah, it's almost dry.
Dave was able to make it to the Pusha T show this weekend, so we're going to be getting a review of that show, as well as just hearing about how awesome Pusha is live, because I just assume he's incredible. We're going to be talking some news that came out in this past week that we wanted to touch on, a couple of movies, and a couple of albums, including a big surprise album. So hit that subscribe button on youtube.com/nostalgiapod and follow us on any platform, which you can find on our link tree on our Twitter page at nostalgiapod. But Dave, we're going to start first with your review of the Pusha T show. Where did you see him this time?
Yeah, so I saw Pusha T at Big Night Live in Boston. It's Almost Dry tour. My third time seeing him. I'd seen him at the Meadows 2016 and Governor's Ball 2018. And so this is my first time seeing him on tour. Although when I did see him at Governor's Ball, it was his first show after he had dissed Drake with The Story of Adidon. And there's a lot of hype going into that set. And of course, he did not play Adidon or Infrared. Maybe he did play Infrared, I don't remember. But that was a lot of fun. This is my first time seeing him on tour. And my first time at Big Night Live in Boston as well, which is one of the newer venues here. And it was really great. You know, having already seen him, I knew how good he was live. He's very competent rapper, as you can imagine, where in the sense that he doesn't really miss any of his lines. He really just raps his whole verse live. It's great to hear, of course, because the songs are awesome. And a lot of great energy at this show, just being around people that know all of the Pusha verses. You know, it's a lot of fun hearing that. And Pusha T, you know, it's kind of methodical, I guess, the way he performs, where he just really just like goes into his songs, goes through his songs. Pretty simple set. There's just a few like light boards that really do switch up the lighting, the colors you see. A bit of epileptic seizure, perhaps, if you don't like flashing lights. Definitely a lot going on with those light boards, but really it's just Pusha T just, you know, growling there up on stage going through his songs. And he did damn near all of It's Almost Dry. He did almost all of Daytona as well. The Daytona song has gotten a big response for sure. Really, honestly, track 2, he did Brambleton off It's Almost Dry, and that Brambleton, that Pharrell beat is so lively. That one, I think, really got people going. But it's not a rap crowd that's like super like mosh heavy Pusha T. Even though like towards the end they were like telling people to open shit up, but like I think it's just like kind of like the clientele of people going to see a Pusha show. It's not like, you know, like kids going to see like Uzi or something where it wasn't rowdy. It was packed. It was sold out for sure, but it wasn't rowdy. It was more people like vibing and just like and really enjoying the music, which is nice, I guess. You know, you're not fighting to keep your spot nearly as much, which is nice.
But, what is his like most intense like moshiest song? I can't even think of one.
Yeah, that's the thing too, and like when I was trying to like decide like when am I gonna like take some videos, it's like it's not like there's any like standout like moment you would think of. It's like, oh, I gotta get this, you know, because I know the crowd's gonna react this way. It's like it's just like, you know, he's gonna play numbers on the boards. It's gonna be awesome. People are gonna like it. You know,
I feel like
whatever it is.
The song I'd want to record would be like his verse from Runaway if he did it. You know, like get that. Right. But that's not a song that you're gonna like mosh and like knock people over to.
Correct. So he does Runaway, and last time when I saw him when he did Runaway, he said the same thing. He's like, I ain't singing. You guys gotta do this because I'm not singing. No way. And then everyone has to sing the Kanye parts, and all the phones are definitely out for this. And then he does his verse, and we keep it moving, honestly. But yeah, I mean, like if you think about like the way he did the set, and you can look up the set list, is pretty standard for this tour. He does like 2 separate encores, but like the encore songs are not even like songs we necessarily like think of Pusha first. It's like Mercy and Move That Dope and Runaway and I Don't Like and also Grindin', of course, Clips. Then like the end of the last the end of the first encore is "Scrape It Off." I wouldn't have guessed that. Then he comes back out for two more songs. He does "Feel the Love," Kids See Ghosts song,
Hmm.
and then he ends with "So Appalled" off Dark Twisted Fantasy. Again, like not the "So Appalled"
Not his
Pusha
own
verse, not
songs.
what I would have thought of, you know.
No, even the one off "Kids See Ghosts." I can still feel the love. That's like the only part of that song that I truly remember. The yeah da 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 da, like the
Yeah,
Pusha verse. Not something I remember off that. So
yeah.
it's a cool song though. You're live.
Honestly, the song that got me most hyped, like I think Diet Coke was a lot of fun live just because of
Mm-hmm.
the beat. Even people really seem to like Neck and Wrist. People really like to Call My Bluff. I love New God Flow the most.
Mm.
One of my favorite Pusha songs, and I mean, people love that shit. Nostalgia as well, off was it Darkest for the Dawn, whatever album that's from. That one was really good. I mean, because Pusha T's solo songs are usually pretty short, there's not a lot of like three verse songs or anything. He ended up running up a lot of songs in like a 70-minute show. He did like over 25 songs, I think. So even though it
Damn.
wasn't the longest show I've ever seen, he still really kept it going. So a lot of fun. And yeah, Pusha T, as you can imagine, is just as good on stage as he is on the mic. Who would have thought?
He's just a he's an adult performer. You know, like he makes
Yeah.
adult songs for adults, and it's good shit. Like he's just a great artist. I'm glad that you're able to see him. Who do you have up next? Who's your next live show?
Yeah, on July 1st, I'm seeing Joey Badass for his first show for this new tour he's doing, and the new album was supposed to come out this past weekend, and is now delayed a little bit due to apparently sample clearances. So he says. So either way, looking forward to that Joey show soon.
Well, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about Joey and these sample clearances in a little bit. But why don't we move forward, sticking with music, to some I don't know if it's sad news, maybe just I don't know, something that we're not thrilled to hear, which is that K-pop super band BTS announced this past week that they're taking a little bit of a break. They're going on a little hiatus. Apparently, it was a very emotional um, like announcement. I didn't
Yes,
watch it, but I think you
I
did.
did. Yep.
But the group was like having dinner, from what I read, and like kind of like had this conversation about what this means for them. And apparently a couple members got really teary eyed and
Oh
choked
yeah.
up. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. But I guess first of all, like, is this like the end of BTS in your mind?
No, definitely not the end. And it's kind of been funny to see the way certain outlets have discussed this. Uh, the translations in the video of that dinner, which was a long video, use the word hiatus. The next thing you know, people are talking about like, is the group disbanded? Blah blah blah, right? And like many of the members have since went online to clarify their feelings and their position and everything. But I mean, the way it started was Suga just kind of off the cuff, like 40 minutes into this video. It's just like, so should we talk about how we're gonna not be like together for a little bit, or I forget exactly how he said it. It just kind of ripped into it, and uh, the way they all outlined it in their own ways, they all took time to speak about Solo, that they needed and really wanted this time apart for their own personal growth, and that this is a necessary step for BTS to continue long term. So they all had a pretty thoughtful view of it, in terms of getting to BTS Chapter 2, as they said. And, uh, a lot of, I think, K-pop super fans, people that have been through this before, weren't necessarily surprised this news came up. I think the pandemic probably slowed this down from even happening. On the other hand, given how successful they've been, particularly in the West, particularly in the United States, very recently, it is probably coming at an inopportune time for HYBE, for their label, for those investors in that label who saw the stock drop tremendously. So the timing, I think, in the overall span of BTS, the group, makes a lot of sense. They formed in 2013. That first album came out in 2014. We first talked about them in 2018. It's a long time ago,
Yep.
So it sounds like this is, it's probably a good call, and it's not like they're going to go away, because we're going to hear all kinds of solo music by the sound of it. J-Hope was already announced before this as a headliner at Lollapalooza. He has some solo work out already. I imagine he perhaps is the first person out of the gate with more solo music from here on out. We'll see. But yeah, definitely shocking, or at least big news for sure, that BTS at the peak of their powers is taking a break from group activities for some time.
Yeah, when I first started, my first thought was, I don't know if they're gonna be done forever. I mean, I'm sure we'll get them back in some way, but it feels like a hiatus like this at this point in their run as a group feels like they're not going to come back and ever be completely the same. Obviously, they're going to
Yeah,
grow. They're going to be making solo work. Who knows if maybe every member will return in some sense. I don't know how that will work. I know that there was a lot of stock implications to this. The Korean entertainment, whatever their production group, lost a lot of money from this. Is that?
yeah.
I mean, do you have those numbers offhand? Or?
I know it went down like 25%. The HYB stock, which is the name of their label, it used to be called Big Hit, and I mean, there's a whole kind of separate conversation about like whether this label that is getting the majority of their money from one group should really be a public thing on stock exchange, whatever. Yeah, I mean that happened, but I think we'll see the recovery too, because J Hope and RM and Suga, their past solo work has been top 40 in the US. Like, we're going to see success from these guys on the solo stage, I have no doubt. And yeah, is it going to be BTS level success? Unlikely. But on the other hand, like Lisa, her solo shit with Blackpink, those two songs both did numbers and became TikTok smashes. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that these guys can become solo stars as well, because I think they're uh, to their fans, I think they would like to see that, and they're all unique enough to warrant that. So now it's just a matter of seeing if that actually happens. But yeah, I mean, the label, they had to. Well, they of course knew this was coming, but yeah, I think the stock stuff is just kind of it's a temporary hiccup. I mean, it's whatever. I mean, and in the grand scheme of things, why don't you run the real numbers that matter, which I think is how much money BTS printed in the past year performing. We obviously know how big their songs have been lately, and then their album sales, but like they grossed like $30 million doing 4 shows in LA at the end of 2021, and then they did another 4 shows in Las Vegas this past April, and they made another $30 million plus. Uh, that was the biggest tour in April with only 4 shows. Like, and I think that's another thing. It's like, man, they're like they have the Western audience in the palm of their hand right now. 200,000 tickets sold at 4 shows. It's crazy, right? Taking a break. So it seems like they really need this break. So I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more of the solo music. But as you said, I think they'll definitely come back in a different form than they. I mean, they're already several forms away from how they debuted. For anyone who's like hardcore to the band, you definitely know that from a Sonic thing. But like, Jin's 29, Jin's 30 at the end of the year. He has to go to do the military service. They already got their extension to 30. So I feel like that's where Jin's headed. But Jungkook's the youngest one. He's only 24. He's definitely not doing the military service anytime soon. He was, out working with Charlie Puth. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It seems like they're all going to go in all kinds of directions right now.
definitely going to be interesting to see what comes out of this hiatus. I'm just thinking about that reunion tour in I don't know a couple like 2 or 3 years. That's going to be insane money, dude. Just
Yeah.
insane. So
Oh yeah.
definitely going to be talking more as we find out what's next for all these BTS boys. Dave, any last thoughts? Or are you ready to move on?
Well, I think the other note too is BTS was roughly 30% of all K-pop sales and streams in the US in 2021, the biggest share by far. I'm curious to see who fills that void. Obviously, the BTS guys solo will fill that, but we know Blackpink's coming back this year. And then there's lots of other groups of various stature that are targeting the West, like aespa and Twice and things like that. So I'm curious to see what else happens. K-pop as a whole, Korean entertainment as a whole is certainly not going to shrink in the West despite BTS's temporary absence. So something to watch.
Absolutely something to watch. And like I said, we'll be talking all about it. And something else we're talking about is Jon Snow. I guess. I guess it's just funny because we haven't even gotten House of Dragons yet, And
Oh,
just this past week, it's announced that Kit Harington is going to be reprising his role as Jon Snow for another one of the Game of Thrones sequel series or spin-off series.
yeah.
This is going to be a sequel post the ending of Game of Thrones, where last time we saw him, he was walking into the woods there.
Yep. Beyond the
What
Wall once
the
again.
the haunted forest with like the wildlings and ghosts, and so I don't know. I just have no idea what this is gonna be. Do you have any thoughts or theories on like what the show could actually look like?
Right. So I think it's important to note that this is still an early development, and if they were to actually greenlit and make this show, Kit Harington is apparently attached. But there's no guarantee this is actually happening, and certainly not going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, I thought the timing was definitely curious, given House of the Dragon comes out in August. And I mean, my anticipation for House of the Dragon is super high. It looks awesome, and just a great premise, a great idea for the first Game of Thrones spin-off. Obviously, this is a franchise in a world that's so rich that it's not going to go away. And even if it wasn't that rich, Warner Discovery would not let it go away because of how successful Game of Thrones was, right? But seeing the Targaryen Civil War that we're going to see soon with the Dance of Dragons, that's very exciting. Great spin-off. I'm looking forward to it. Now, I don't think anyone's naive enough to think that like Game of Thrones getting a sequel was never going to happen. But I don't know, like Kit Harington was like, he was kind of happy to be done
Yeah.
shooting in Northern Ireland for like 2/3 of his life every year,
Mhm.
And it hasn't actually been that long since Game of Thrones ended, especially with the pandemic. Like it ended in
What, 2 years?
2019.
Yeah.
And like thinking about Kit Harington's career, it's like he's like barely in Eternals and assumingly will be in Blade, but it's like it's not like he got up to a whole lot, you know,
No.
besides chilling with his wife, Rose Leslie, right? Like I don't know, it's just kind of curious timing. But I guess I mean they're gonna develop this because they've been developing like 5 to 10 spin-offs at a time for Game of Thrones anyway. So I guess maybe it's not that out of the ordinary, but it also begs the question that George R. R. Martin is apparently very enthusiastic about this continuation, and we're no closer to getting the Winds of Winter, the latest book in the Song of Ice and Fire, than we were when Game of Thrones ended. So it's probably another nail in the coffin for book fans here, I guess, because he seems to be very stretched thin. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, is this the spinoff that would be your number one? It's not really a spinoff, a sequel. Is this your number one desired continuation of Game of Thrones? Because to
No.
me, I actually would kind of enjoy going in the other direction, seeing some other stuff like the Aegon's Conquest or the Doom of Valyria or something. There's just so many other things that are very appealing to me. I mean, heck, George R. R. Martin said he's developing a theater play, to debut next year about the tourney at Harrenhal. And I was like, you know what? That's actually an amazing idea for a play, a Game of Thrones play. So that's exciting to me too. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't really like necessarily like looking for like the Game of Thrones sequel. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think if you heard me start this topic, I'm not super thrilled to be with Jon Snow again. By far, one of the least like fun characters to
Yeah,
just like hang with in the whole series, just moping around for
tough stuff.
like the last like 5 or 6 seasons. It should also be noted that they have, I think, 4 other series in development: Tales of
Right.
Dunk and Egg, Ten
Yeah.
Thousand Ships, Nine Voyages, and Flea Bottom, and some unnamed animated series.
Yeah.
So
Sea
you know,
Snake.
there's a lot of stuff going on here, and like I guess I also just I don't know what more there is to like be told about Jon Snow's story. Like, is he just gonna come and like come for Bran? Does Bran like break bad? Is that the thing?
Yeah.
Like, maybe that would be interesting if like Jon Snow has to get the siblings together against Bran, who has all these powers. I mean, I don't know.
You have to assume this is an on ramp to meet other people. Like, oh, what's Sansa up to in Winterfell? Not that far
Right.
from John, Oh, Bran down there in King's Landing.
You got to
We'll
see
check on him.
Arya.
Arya,
Yeah.
maybe she comes back in season 2, off on her adventures. There's no way it's just Kit Harington coming back, right?
No way. Yeah, I mean, unless they're just gonna do something totally in the forest beyond the wall, but then it's just like a completely new story, which
Yeah.
maybe that's intriguing to explore something completely new, but it's just hard to get on board when the main character is someone that we're so familiar with, and not
Yeah.
super hyped to be spending more time with. So we'll see. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I guess I'm just kind of like deferring to like the rich backstory that's already been established by George versus this kind of unknown future that George hasn't established yet. And I have faith in like HBO being able to make a good show. Like no matter how you feel about the end of Game of Thrones, I have faith that this is not going to be some disaster or anything. But I would think I'd be more excited if just more time had passed, I guess.
Yeah.
And we had seen more other spin-offs and other things, first.
If you had to do a spin-off of one of the siblings or one of the main characters from the show, would it have been John? Like, who would you want to see more of?
No, I don't think it would have been John. I think
Arya?
Arya is a very obvious.
Yeah.
Her traveling around, we can see other areas in Westeros and Southerros, and see other locales that we haven't actually seen on the screen before. Like that just has like obvious, limitless potential. It feels like I don't know that the John story has as much potential as it would seem, unless John is immediately just going back south and getting back into the politics and stuff.
Yeah, I would almost even like to see something where like maybe Bran has like taken a step back and just kind of been like a weirdo and like Sansa's actually running shit. It's like a political thriller type of thing. Like maybe that'd be interesting, almost like House of Cards, but Sansa is like the Underwood figure.
The best material in Game of Thrones in general is what you just said. So that would be great.
But yeah, I mean we'll see. Like you said, this is quite a ways off if it actually happens, but I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire with this stuff, and I mean, like you said, Kit Harington's not doing a lot of other stuff, so why not go back to the well for him?
Yeah, he
I don't know.
probably
We'll see.
realized he could. He's like, oh, a few $1,000,000 each episode. That doesn't sound too bad. I could do that again.
Doesn't sound bad at all. Well, as we get more news on this, we'll keep you informed. So hit that subscribe button. But let's move forward to something I'm actually really excited to talk about, Dave, which is Cha Cha Real Smooth, the new movie that dropped on Apple Plus this past weekend from it seems like a very talented director. This is his second film, Cooper Raiff, who also stars in the film as Andrew. Also stars Dakota Johnson. Leslie Mann is in it. I wouldn't say she stars in it, but she's in it. Evan Asante and Vanessa Berghardt kind of round out the cast as their young actors in this. And man, this movie is just a total delight. I thought I just had such a good time with this movie. It really hit every emotional point I think it was going for. And while I think like maybe certain aspects of it could have been a little bit tighter or a little bit more like thought through for this, like I wouldn't even say a rom-com, just like a comedy drama type of thing. I think it's like coming of age thing. I think it's a really well told story. So I really enjoyed Cha Cha Real Smooth. What was your response to it?
Yeah, I also enjoyed it quite a bit. I actually haven't seen Cooper Raiff's debut film from last year, Shithouse, but from what I understand, it's a similar kind of vibe where Raiff's character again is kind of like an earnest, nice guy who's like going through it, and how he's interacting with his characters. It definitely feels like Raiff takes a lot of inspiration from like Richard Linklater movies, and in general seems to be a talent to watch, to pay attention to. He's now made 2 critically acclaimed features, and he's only 25 years old. Perhaps is he the first like Gen Z filmmaker of true note? He's one of the first anyway.
Yeah.
So good for him, regardless. Yeah, it's kind of a rom-com, but it's like a romantic coming of age movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I liked it a lot for the performances, as well as I think just the overall earnestness is just really really nice to be with. And ultimately it's a very low stakes story, but everything to me was really simpatico. Everything just made sense and felt believable. And yeah, can you pick out some of these beats and guess what's going to happen? Sure. It's not the most original thing I've ever seen, but I was just really entertained and really liked being with these characters. And I think Dakota Johnson deserves a lot of plaudits for really elevating the Domino character. Not that far off from, I guess, what she did in The Lost Daughter recently, kind of a similar character. But I think her ability to make a character kind of hard to pin down while giving this understated performance just really worked with, I think, the like honesty that Rafe seems to imbue in his character. So yeah, I liked it a lot.
I thought it was really smart that the movie starts off with Andrew as this, 12, 13-year-old boy at this bar mitzvah who has this crush on the party person there, the party leader there.
Mhm.
And it's just totally like devastating to see this little kid like put themselves out there and get rejected and see that response. Like it immediately like sucked me in emotionally to the movie and kind of like it gives you an insight into like the outgoingness and like the bravery of this character because put himself out there as he does throughout the film, I think takes a lot of courage and a lot of risk taking. But you also kind of recognize that he's like this sweet person at the center, and I think that sweetness, like you kind of identified when you were summing up your response to it, is really like what drives the movie forward. Is there's this like gentleness and this real fondness for all the characters and their like traumatic experiences and things that have shaped
Mm.
them. And I think obviously Domino is the character that is I think most like playing in the sandbox with that sort of thing, like the traumas that shape them and how those things kind of guide the decisions they make and the choices that they're more inclined to stick with, even if it doesn't always feel as satisfying as other decisions. And maybe we'll get more into the spoileriness of it, but it just all feels like very real, and I really appreciated that. Like that choice between do I go for like this lust or do I go for something more real, something that's a little bit more stable, kind of accepting like the stages of life and what that means. A lot of like really interesting ideas raised, and it all felt very very grounded in reality for me. So I really enjoyed that. What like themes of the film did you find yourself resonating most with?
Yeah, I think for me, again, like the earnestness that is so like kind of central to the character, Rafe's character, just really I think just kind of wins you over, and the movie does a really nice job with how all these bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah scenes. They're
Yeah,
kind of awesome set pieces, and like it's not like we're about to see crazy action. We're not, but eh, they just really like punch up the film, and then kind of like liven it back up, and then we just kind of see things unfold. I think it sets up these conversations between the characters where you can get like really personal and really just kind of really advancing, I guess, like the emotional plot in these conversations, but like you're bookending it with these like more, I think, enjoyable, easy to follow bar mitzvah scenes where I think it just all really works out, and Leslie Mann, like you said, not in the movie a whole lot, but I think plays an important role as this like bipolar mother character
mhm.
and how that impacts everything. I think the Andrew character is just kind of interesting to me because, like, on one hand, he's like a very unremarkable guy, not exactly like anyone to write home about. He graduated with nothing going on, so
Mhm.
it's like, why should I care about this guy who's clearly does not have himself figured out? And then
Yeah,
you kind of watch him figure himself out in a very roundabout fashion.
yeah. No, I think the Andrew character is really smartly written, and I just the way that his character really like learns and grows, but like not in like some linear way. It's very like herky jerky up and down throughout the movie. Is really probably my favorite part of it, and I think that's demonstrated really well with stepdad Greg, played by Brad Garrett. Who's kind of this punching bag for Andrew, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It's the partner that his mother has come to later on in life after a divorce from his father, his biological father. It's not really talked about what happened with Leslie Mann's Lisa and the father you see at the beginning, but it's kind of I think insinuated that he was like at least mean or potentially like physically abusive towards her.
Mm.
So there's I think going to be this like animosity, but as Andrew starts to figure things out and think about like what he's standing up for, what feels right for him, the things that he's like fighting for in his life, he starts to understand Greg more and appreciate the role that he plays for his mother, and comes to kind of understand like what it means to maybe not be with somebody who you think is like the coolest person in the world, or that you think is like the most amazing person, but provides something that you really feel like you need, or something that you're looking for, something that you've wanted to have. And so I think like his that like journey he goes on with each character, kind of understanding like their needs and how to be there for them. And obviously that's kind of demonstrated directly with Domino and Lola, but you start to see him kind of figure that out with his brother more as the movie goes on. You start to see him figure it out with stepdad Greg and his mom. It's really just like it comes full circle so well. It's really smartly written, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's cool to see a character who's like so able to people please when he gets kind of like bursts through into this party starter uh, job all of a sudden,
Hmm.
but still finding a way to please himself as
Hmm.
well. It's kind of the obvious paradigm that you would see in the story, but I think it works out. And the kid performances
Yeah.
are good as well. I think the Lola
Hmm.
just really hits all her notes.
Yeah.
As Domino's daughter with autism, and then also Andrew's younger brother as well,
David. Yeah.
David. Same
Yeah.
thing. Like they both fit the story just the way they need to.
Yeah, and David's friend Rodrigo is
Yeah,
like such good comic relief, like wanting to kick that kid's ass.
right.
I feel like that's really great. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much more to say about this movie. I just really loved it. It's on Apple Plus. If you have Apple TV Plus, please check it out. It's
Yeah,
really, really wonderful, and it feels like Cooper Rafe is a person we'll be talking about in this realm for quite a while.
yeah. I'm
So
I'm sure about that. And Dakota Johnson as well, seemingly
yeah,
putting in work lately, which is nice to see for sure.
ever
Um,
since she took down Ellen, she's just catching W's, dude. It's
for
great.
sure. Yeah. This was out of Sundance. Apple bought this for 15 million. I believe that was the biggest sale of Sundance this year. Don't necessarily think they're going to push this the way they pushed Coda last year. I don't know if we're heading to Oscar glory here, but um, yeah, definitely Cooper Rafe, someone to watch.
Yeah, worthy addition to their catalog. And let's move to Netflix, where I think they also dropped a worthy addition to their catalog this weekend. Spiderhead. Man, I mean, first of all, we should mention Spiderhead is a movie that I think was somewhat anticipated, because you get Joseph Kaczynski, who we just saw is
Hmm.
the biggest film of the year with Top Gun Maverick. So someone that we are already talking about. But then you get Miles Teller and Chris Hemsworth and Journey Smollett to
Yeah,
star in it, and you're like, this movie's pretty intriguing, based on a short story which has gotten a lot of acclaim and a lot of notice. So there was all the makings here for this to be good. I think the like one drawback I will say is that it does feel a little bit like this was a movie made in COVID, and you can kind of tell because it's like a few characters in like a few spaces, and it feels pretty like bottled up. But I still think the movie really works, and I thought it was still pretty well told. How did you like Spiderhead?
yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's not been super critically well received, but I would say it's like super functional. And it's like, yeah, is it like thematically super high level? No, I guess not. It's I think the setup is stronger than the conclusion. We'll say that, but I just kind of really enjoyed being with this Chris Hemsworth performance.
Yeah.
And yeah, even though it's definitely COVID production, this was made at the end of 2020 because Top Gun Maverick had already been completed at that point, of course, as people know. Because it's like set in this prison setting, obviously a atypical prison, but a prison setting. It kind of makes sense the way like things are staged and characters are separated, and we're not seeing too many crowding. Like it didn't bother me that like you can definitely tell that this was made in just a few rooms basically. And I think Kaczynski, like he just as people I feel like know at this point has a competence that he'll always bring. And I felt like the blocking of this movie, like just visually, looked very impressive for a movie that's completely indoors with very few subjects. So I still liked it quite a bit. I think again, I think the Hemsworth performance really is like the star of this, because Hemsworth's someone who's been very hit or miss outside of Thor in terms of making commercial successes. However, I think we've definitely learned time and time again that when Chris Hemsworth's being a little more comedic, a little a little off, it's honestly his biggest strength because he can really nail it.
I mean, doesn't this kind of feel like they're taking the turn the Thor character has had in the last few movies, and just kind of like, instead of it being Thor, they're like, you're gonna act like Thor, but just you're gonna be like a smart guy. Like, and then they're like, you can just be goofy and like fun and like, yeah, I think he's a little bit more cunning than Thor. Obviously,
It's
he's
tech bro.
yeah, he's tech bro with a ulterior motive, and pushing boundaries in a lot of unethical ways, but he's just chewing on every single scene, man. Like, he's just like having the best time. You can kind of tell that he really is enjoying being in this antagonist role. And he really loves, I think, the like broness that he gets to do with Miles Teller in a few of these scenes. Like, I found those scenes really fun to watch when they're on that like Lavactin or whatever the drug was called, and they're like just
Laffadil, was it?
yeah, Laffadil, and
That
they're
was the
just like
best name I think of the
giggling.
drugs.
Yeah, they're just giggling to themselves about stupid shit. It's really, really great. Um, it's funny because Hemsworth definitely shines, and you think like, you got Kaczynski and Miles Teller back for this is their third time together in movies, but Teller's just kind of like driving the plot along, just kind of
Yeah,
telling the story, and I
just
really
a
actually,
dude.
yeah, and I just really like. I almost wanted to just get more of the backstory, like when they would flash back to
Yes.
like him partying in that field. It's like, I'm a lot more interested in what's going on here. Like, what is this bar that they're at,
Hmm.
or this field that they're like having this in? I want to know more. But
Right.
yeah, no, I thought Teller was fine. Like, he was just there, kind of.
Yeah. At the end of the day, he just doesn't have like a whole lot to really work with in terms of what Spiderhead lets him do. Um, Obviously, as Rooster, he had a whole lot more to
Yeah.
communicate. Even if he didn't always have a lot of lines at Top Gun Maverick, he still imbued a lot into that character. But this time around, like you said, I think it's really just kind of moving the plot, being the audience avatar, audience eyes into this very atypical prison situation where the prisoners have freedom of movement and can get things they want and don't really feel like they're being detained. And once we learn why that is, I think that's what probably my favorite part about like the movie setup overall is just like you get invited into this very unique situation and you start to learn about what's going on. You learn more about Steve Hemsworth's character, and I really think like when we first get exposed to the various drugs they're testing out, a lot of those scenes are really harrowing too, because you really don't know what's going on. I think the biggest fault with the movie is like that once you kind of like have your handle on what's going on in Spiderhead, the second half or the last third, it just kind of goes where it was going to go and doesn't really elevate any further. But I still thought that setup and that premise was just strong enough and appealing enough that I don't mind that much.
Yeah, I didn't find myself really being too bothered by that, and even if the ending I think was a bit like kind of sloppy and just like not as satisfying as I wanted it to be. Just like you have so much fun. Like, I thought Tellers and Journey Smollett had some nice scenes together, and she gets a couple scenes near the end, especially to kind of like
Mm.
show off some of her chops. Obviously we've talked about her a bit in Birds of Prey and Lovecraft Country, so she's a star who's kind of on the upward trend. But yeah, the poop hands is like a fun like running joke through this, and like kind of trying to figure out who that is, kind of just seeing the setup of this prison experiment and like the freedom that they have, and like the roles that they're doing, I thought was kind of fun. And I think obviously it's like it asks interesting questions that I think obviously are unsettling and unethical, but like especially when they're doing like the love actin drug at the beginning, and
Yeah,
there's like this like pseudo sex scenes that you see. It's kind of like it definitely is a lot more fun to be with that, and they start bringing in the dark whatever it's called,
Dark
and
of Phil or something. Yeah,
yeah, it's that's when things kind of start to lose you a little bit. But
Totally.
um, yeah, I thought overall, I just was thinking about Netflix movies, and this feels like probably one of the better ones to like just go back to and like just throw on and just be like, this is a solid film.
Yeah, totally. Because like if you kind of like remove the like movies that like Netflix is kind of like shelled out for more tours, like your Romas and your Marriage Stories and your Irishmans, like those types, which are all great. In terms of like the more like true like hashtag Netflix movie, like it's like this and like Triple Frontier. Like I think about in the same way. It's like these are just like really competent, and if Netflix made it easier for people to see this and distinguish this from anything else on their platform, more people would probably be excited about it. It is fascinating to kind of analyze like where the Netflix movie phenomenon is these days. Because if you look at their top 10, it's always movies that were previously theatrically released by major studios. Oftentimes, movies that were not well received, but just kind of random movies that have seemingly additional cachet to the average Netflix viewer because they probably saw the commercial back in the day or the poster and then never saw it. And like, oh, I'll check it out now. Whereas Spiderhead, they have no fucking idea what this is. Um,
Right.
but I wish they did because I actually think it's pretty good.
I know they almost need a category that's like B movies or something like that, where it's just like this isn't the Irishmen's or the Romas, but this is like the next best thing that we have.
Yeah.
I don't know. Definitely check out Spiderhead if you have Netflix. This is probably one of the better original things you're going to get from them. Um, Dave was able to make it to the movie theaters to talk about Lightyear because we all needed the Buzz Lightyear origin story, and thank God Pixar gave it to us. Dave, tell me about Lightyear. Did you enjoy your movie going experience with this?
Yeah, man. Lightyear's a tough one.
Oh
I
no!
think it's notable to acknowledge that Lightyear is our first time back at the movie theater with Pixar since the pandemic began. Of course, Onward box office legs cut off as the pandemic began, and then Soul, Luca, and Turning Red all
Right.
released directly to Disney Plus since then. So Lightyear's our first time back in the theater, and it's a bit of a shame that like the first time back in the theater is their most like uninspired movie of the bunch. And
Mm,
yeah, I like it less than all of those recent Pixar movies that have come out in the past 2 years for sure. It's it's definitely a weird one, and if you look at the box office and you see that this is actually coming in below projections, I just hope Disney like doesn't take the wrong lessons here and they send their next movie Elemental to theaters next year. I just hope that happens because like I think Lightyear had just kind of a core issue with it where like you kind of joked about in the start, like people don't really know like what this is, which is such an unforced error for a Pixar movie. It's like no, it's not a Toy Story spin-off really. It's not a Buzz Lightyear thing. It's as they say on the screen when you start watching the film. This is the movie Andy saw in 1995 that made him want to get a Buzz Lightyear toy. It's like, huh? It's like it's just kind of a weird sell, and it's also a bit disappointing for Andy that like this was his like Star Wars, because like
yeah.
the movie Lightyear is like, it's just not that great. I just didn't really enjoy my time with it nearly as much as I would with even say like Luca, which is a Pixar film that has a lot of familiar Pixar themes. At the end of the day, it's like super well made and fun to be with. Lightyear wasn't that fun to be with, honestly, and
Mm,
I think that's just kind of unfortunate. You know, um, lots been made of the voice change here. Tim Allen no longer Buzz. You have Chris Evans coming in, and you obviously understand why that perhaps happened. Chris Evans definitely easier person to have on the promo circuit, but honestly, I think the Tim Allen performance is far superior. As Buzz Lightyear, which I think that also kind of like a fundamental thing where like if you think about like Toy Story, the Buzz character was always kind of it was a joke. Buzz was a joke, and the Buzz him how he thought about himself was so um, out of touch, right? And Woody would always poke fun at this about how this guy's just a fucking idiot, right? And like
you are a toy.
right. This time around, though, and we have Evans at the helm. This Buzz Lightyear character, the real Buzz Lightyear, he's just like an arrogant, selfish hotshot. It's like it's just not redeeming. But there's also like no extra subtext to it the way there was with the Buzz Lightyear character in Toy Story. So, it's just it just doesn't have like the multitudes that you'd expect from a Pixar film. Whatever, they make a lot more movies now than they used to. They're not going to have as high a batting average. It is what it is. But this was something that like I feel like had such a high bar to try and be successful because everyone was so skeptical of this movie when it was announced at like a shareholder meeting. It's like no one necessarily wanted this. It's like, okay, fine, maybe it's not the Pixar movie for adults like many of them are. Kids though, right? At the end of the day, these are kids movies, animated movies. But like as like a rip roaring like animated adventure, like it's definitely not like the best choice, you know, for kids when they're picking out what to watch on Disney Plus. You know, it's yeah, I think the supporting characters are pretty weak, and like the a lot of the set pieces, really everything after the first act is just pretty monotonous, and I find that really disappointing. You know, I think it's funny. There's a few moments of brilliance with this, which I think actually makes it even more disappointing when you look at the whole thing, because in the very beginning of the film, after what happens at our start, where Buzz basically causes this large spacefaring vessel to crash on a planet that's not their destination. Everyone has to come out of deep sleep and start working and find a way to fix their big ship so they can leave this planet and move on to where they were going. That's kind of our setup. And uh, Buzz takes it on himself to fix this because he was the one who caused the incident in the first place. So he keeps testing their like fuel loads and like their hyperspace fuel, whatever it is, right? And every time he does these tests, it's only like 10-minute test for him. But when he lands back on the planet where they're stuck, it's like 4 years have passed. Some interstellar shit starts happening. Next thing you know, we get an up level montage where Buzz keeps testing and testing and testing to the point where his best friend lives a full life and then dies. And it's like, wow, that is it's very reminiscent of Up, where like he just kind of hits you in the feels, but it's also a very effective way to, I think, put the movie in a place I didn't expect it to go right off the jump in the first like 20 minutes. And then it's just so disappointing that after that montage, it just like doesn't come together the way I wanted it to. I think that the saving grace of the movie, which saves so many of the scenes, because like I said, I think the supporting characters are pretty undercooked. Buzz isn't that fun to be with. The best thing about this is the sidekick. It's the robotic dog Socks, who is just kind of like the secret weapon sidekick character. So funny.
I think Socks is a cat from the picture you have, at least.
Oh, it's a cat. Yeah, it's a cat. Sorry, it's a little cat.
Well, and so that was one of the things.
But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that was something I was thinking about. Was like, you know, Andy obviously is gonna love the main character of the movie, but like, I feel like the cat would have been like the toy that would have really like popped off back in the day. You know, you would have had to get the Buzz Lightyear toy and the cat, and he just never got the cat. Like I don't know. That feels like a hole now. It feels like a Star Wars like prequel type hole where now you have to write this back into the new Toy Stories why they never produced the cat figurine.
Yeah.
Socks, great name.
Socks is great, voiced by Peter Sohn, who is a Pixar director, Pixar veteran. Lightyear, directed by Angus McLean, who is another Pixar veteran. This is his first solo directorial work for them. Pixar, of course, just like Domi Shi with Turning Red, continuing to promote in-house, which is really cool to see how they keep giving people chances that are involved to varying degrees along the way. But yeah, it's not like, it's just kind of an underwhelming, undercooked film, which it just feels off because this was something that needed to be fully cooked to be made because it was an intentional spin-off of Toy Story. So yeah, it's just not nearly as fun as I wanted to, but the socks is the best part about it, start to finish, and a lot of the socks stuff is really fun.
So it sounds like you're a fan of the socks, Dave.
I am. Yep.
There you
High
go.
socks.
High on Socks, low on Lightyear. I'm probably gonna wait to have this drop on Disney Plus before I check it out. It doesn't feel like something I need to see in theaters. So, drop your thoughts on this below on our YouTube page because I'm interested to see because like Pixar has just been on such a undeniable run, and even if some of the movies recently have been a bit headier and not as fun to be with as some of those like 2010s or late 2000s Pixar movies, I definitely feel like this what everything I'm hearing about this feels just like a big misstep. So I'm interested to
Right.
see if other people are viewing it the same way.
I mean, especially just coming off Turning Red though. Like Turning Red is like
Right.
so much better than this, and has so much more going on,
Yeah.
and is also so much more engaging to kids. I feel like too. So it's just kind of a head scratcher at the end of the day. Lightyear.
Interesting. Well, let's switch gears from movies to music, and we're gonna start with the new Perfume Genius album. Ugly Season has arrived. And first of all, great name for an album.
Great name.
Perfume Genius. We haven't talked about them in 2 years. When they really, I guess I should say, when he,
Yeah.
speaking about Michael Hadrius, really like, I think broke out in a way. I think No Shape in 2017 was like a step forward, but then Set My Heart on Fire immediately gained him a lot of attention and a
Yeah.
lot of acclaim, and really kind of shot his star upwards. uh, if you go back and listen to our review, I was really high on the album. I still go back and listen to a couple of those songs. Queen is one of a song I go back to quite a bit from that one, but On the Floor is also one that I really like from that. And so Ugly Season, I was looking forward to it, but I'm still trying to like wrap my head around this because on the one hand, I really feel like the music is like high level music and really well made and really well produced. On the other hand, I don't know if I like really like loved listening to it like the first couple goes around. As I've listened to it more and more, certain like things are popping out and growing on me. But what was your response to this, Dave?
Yeah, I just want to say too, Queen is actually off an earlier album, not from Set My
Oh,
Heart on
okay.
Fire immediately. But yeah, Ugly Season is mainly instrumental, so that inevitably is going to turn some people off. You know, when we do hear Michael Hadrius's vocals, they're often very low pitched or distorted or barely there at all. You know, it's definitely different from the past work, and I'm kind of like you, where it's like it's kind of hard to grapple with something that like I'm not like super like digging when I'm necessarily listening to it, just because it's so like moody. But overall, it's just often quite understated, and it's like I have to really process these as like instrumental tracks, experimental instrumental tracks. It's just different than what I was thinking, and I started kind of just like gravitating towards like, okay, what does this song kind of remind me of?
Mm.
Because the lyrics, the vocals are so uh, uh, hard to find half the time. You know, a lot of these songs don't have any vocals, so I was just like, what is this like making me think of? Because yeah, it's like it's really good instrumentation. You hear all kinds of instruments, you know, but it's definitely like a special like cocktail of music here.
Yeah, a cocktail music is like a good way to put it because even the songs alone are very like unstructured and will switch up from one thing to the next. And it starts off with Just a Room, which is a pretty like toned down track for me. Goes into Harem, which is this longer kind of expansive track that I don't know, kind of lost me until like the last like maybe 2 minutes when like the like I don't know if it's like a keyboard or I don't know if it's like a distorted like violin or something in the background kind of starts to pitch in. Then they have this like these synths that are very like I don't know, like plucky and like kind of bouncy, kind of coming in for like the last minute or so. That was when I started to perk up, and then Teeth kind of starts off with that same sound, like almost like some like bells, kind of like popping a little bit more. Um, but Teeth, I didn't really feel grabbed by either. Pop Song was a step in the right direction, but I really didn't feel like the album super grabbed me until maybe Eye in the Wall through Hellbent. That was probably like the 3 song run. I was like, okay, there's something I'm grabbing onto here, but I felt pretty listless for a lot of this. It sounds
Yeah,
like you were similar.
yeah, totally. You know, I was just trying to pull away anything from the early stuff. You know, I think pop song, the production, especially to that point, is like some of the bigger, more livelier variety to that point. And then you go into Scherzo, which is really this like piano medley
Piano.
more than anything
Yeah.
else. And I was like, you know what this reminds me of? This is like some Charlie Chaplin silent film shit. That's what I'm
Hmm.
hearing right now. You mentioned Hellbent. I think Hellbent's like the coolest song to revisit, mainly instrumental again. But that one's like kind of like a more like industrial sound, and I was like, you know what, Blade Runner. That's what I'm feeling right now. It's like I could definitely see like that in like a like a montage or something. But it's like I think it's just weird to like hear this from someone who is so well regarded for his lyrics about like important stuff, like the gay experience, for example. It's like to hear this album, which like I read some of the reviews and people are like finding all this meaning, and it's like I just don't know where you're getting all this from, because like I just don't have that many takeaways from instrumentals. I guess I don't know. Maybe that's just a personal fault.
Yeah, I think this is an album that if I give it a few more listens, I'll probably have some more things to pull out of it. But like you said, it's just there's so much going on here that you really have to like interpret and kind of put together. I think there's really just like moments, and I think that 3-track run I talked about at the end, Eye on the Wall, Photograph, and Hellbent, they each kind of have a moment somewhere in the middle where the song like breaks through from something that I wasn't really enjoying to something else. Like in Eye on the Wall, it kind of goes from this like I don't know, like just like it's just like very muted, just kind of like clickiness, to then this like more textured, layered like drums kind of coming in like around you, and then it breaks through to like this even more like relieving like moment where it's almost like everything kind of falls out and you're just kind of like riding this vibe, which is really nice. Hellbent, like you mentioned, I think is the coolest track, and that goes through a lot of changes. But like that has like drums and guitars and these like churning and like kind of like pulsing synths, which are really cool. And Photograph, I think, also has similar to Eye on the Wall, like a very like relieving like middle moment to it. So like I think like if you're gonna listen to this, you really have to like go into it with the idea like I'm gonna try to find something in this and really like try to make something of it. Because I think if you're going in looking for Hadrius to kind of tell you this is what it is, you're gonna be just as lost as I think we feel right now. So um, it's good. It's like well-made music, but I just don't know if I fully got it. If you did have an interpretation of it, I would like people to leave those thoughts below, because I'd like to hear how people are
Yeah.
receiving this. But let's move on to someone who's retired, Dave, but still churning out albums like he's not. Logic. Uh, you didn't believe he was retired, right?
No, so we talked about No Pressure back in 2020, and it was, I think, an impressive work because it was some of the best songwriting we had heard from Logic in some time, while also matching that with the best type of production for Logic. At this point, we know that he sounds much better on dusty ass boom bap than he does on 808 trap beats. That is very clear. And then just last year, Bobby Tarantino 3 comes back. First post-retirement album as a Cup. Not only is Logic back from the brink already, but he's back on some modern day beats. And guess what? It's like so whatever music, because he just doesn't stand out when he's on that kind of production. And it was like, this is probably because he's still signed to Def Jam and has albums he needs to make. Cool. Okay, you know what? He is far from the first rapper to fake retire. It's not actually that big a deal. Whatever. You know what? Then you hear our new record here, Vinyl Days, album 7, is it, for Logic?
I think so.
7th album. Of course, he has many mixtapes as well. And he confirms, yep, this is his final Def Jam record. So these are definitely obligations, these last 2 records, and then anything from here on out will be Logic on a new deal or independent, TBD there. So I didn't actually check out the singles coming into Vinyl Days. There was a few that came out, but judging by the track list, which he let out, and the guests on the track list, I was like, you know what, this is probably more in line with the Logic I like, which is, again, on dustier, more traditional, 90s hip-hop stuff. And that's more or less what this is, which is great, and yeah, it's 30 tracks. It's way too long.
Yeah.
30 tracks, 70 minutes. Most of the songs aren't that long, but
No.
too many tracks. Yeah, I wonder if Def Jam was like, hey, can you give us as many songs as possible before you leave us? Probably not, but that's what I decided to think. But yeah, like it's obviously like it's like way too long, like as a record. But this would probably feel like better if this was like classified as mixtape Logic. Here's just this run of old songs. Like this was Young Sinatra 5 or something. That's not what it is, but I think there's some like solid stuff here. I think more than anything though, Logic lyrically, there's nothing on this that I heard that impressed me the way some of No Pressure did. And I think lyrically, songwriting wise, Logic is just very inconsistent. And that's ultimately what holds him back because he has ability. He has an ear for production sometimes, but like he's just, as a performer, he's just a bit inconsistent to like, I think, kind of change his status where he is in hip hop. And obviously that doesn't really matter because he's a very successful guy. And I think one of the best parts about Vinyl Days is when he kind of talked about his like growing relationship with criticism and how he learned to not take as much offense to comments people or critics would make. And it's like, yeah, I guess that shows some growth. But I think overall, again, the inconsistency with the songwriting is what kind of has been holding me back lately. But I still like this way more than I like anything on Bobby Tarantino 3.
Yeah, 100%. I thought this was actually a pretty like pleasurable listen, and like you said, him kind of going back to that '90s production was a great choice, and making this 30-track album with these short songs that all kind of flow into each other, and I even think some of the like interludes or like skits are like
Right.
kind of like fun. The Michael Rappaport one I had to skip through, but I liked
That was
how
actually one of my favorite ones.
I can't stand Michael Rappaport, so
Yeah, that's fair.
I couldn't listen to him.
It was on
But
brand.
yeah, it's very on brand. I heard him like for like 10 seconds. I was like, I just have to move forward. But
Yeah.
I
There's
thought
like 5 or 6 of these skits, so technically it's not a 30-track album if you really think about it.
yeah, and I thought it was just like it was like mid-level Logic, which is such a step up from where he has been that I was like, oh, is Logic back? Like, is Logic kind of rounding
Yeah.
back into form? And so I think my takeaway from this is like, if he's kind of finding his groove again as he's coming off this deal with Def Jam, great. Maybe this will allow him to just kind of like be him and continue to like explore the sound that works for him. I agree with you. I think lyrically he's very up and down on this, and
Yeah.
even like some of the messaging he's going for. This is a rapper whose biggest song is about the suicide prevention lifeline, and on therapy music, he like is like, I told people to go to therapy, but they didn't know I'm my own therapist, and I was like, what's the message you're sending? Like, I don't really know what you're trying to say.
Just not good lines. That's all it is,
It's just like I don't. It's just confusing and just not well done. So, it's up and down. But I thought some of these songs were pretty fun, especially the like first. I don't know. I think like 6 or 7 tracks. I thought flowed together really well and like moved was a good like opener. Near the end, I think I was just getting a little exhausted. But tell me
Yeah.
what stood out to you. What tracks did you enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, you hear on Danger, you hear Morgan Freeman briefly. It's, you know what? I think we just have to put a moratorium on Morgan Freeman on hip hop albums because Metro Boomin and 21 Savage just did it really good in Savage Mode 2. And you know what? You're just kind of biting them if you use them right now. That's how I felt about that. Lame. But yeah, I think it's right off the bat, like with Tetris from here on there on out, it's like this is more of a Young Sinatra old school Logic vibe. And you have Funk Flex on here pretty routinely as like an MC dropping in and out. Kind of sounded like he was added in post. And I don't think it's as effective as, say, DJ Drama being on Call Me If You Get Lost from Tyler the Creator. Nevertheless, it's kind of fun to hear Flex just being like, bars and doing his things, dropping bombs. Yeah, like, and I think that's the overall thing is like, I don't know if I loved any of these songs as much as I like some older like boom bap Logic stuff, to be honest. But it was more just about an appreciation that's like, you know what, like he's at least like you said, kind of rounding back into form, and he's a guy who's made like a dozen projects. He's made a ton of music, so I guess it does make sense he's going to be up and down. If you're not like a classic MC, I guess you're going to be a bit up and down. And for him, it's just so easy to like decide. It's like, oh yes, modern beats bad, old school beats good. It's like the paradigm of Logic music is often very easy to understand. But like you said, like I think some of the songwriting is kind of a bit a bit off. You mentioned the stuff on therapy music, which feels like a weird postscript 1-800. I also thought Black White Boy was kind of a similar thing, where it's like, you know what? Bobby biracial, Logic talking about that. It's not new material, but like I don't know, like kind of flippantly talking about the fact that yes, you get to pass as white, and it's like tremendous privilege to you. Like I don't know, it's just doesn't seem that intelligent to me. But like
Yeah.
I wouldn't be as offended, but like that's the problem is Logic puts a lot of seriousness in his wittiness, so you have to actually take him at his word on it, and like say when it's not up to snuff. Yeah, I think that's just kind of the thing where it's like I think the other issue with therapy music is it has fucking Russ on it, and Russ and
Yeah.
Logic being together, two of the most self-serious people in the game. It's like, ooh, that's perhaps the stuff of nightmares. Russ ultimately wasn't that bad, but like going in, I was like, oh no, that song could be terrible.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good point on Black White Boy. The thing that disappointed me most about that was that was probably one of my like favorite beats off the album.
Yeah,
It like just drives forward so well, like and so hard, and it has like clicking in the background, that like electronic clicking. I just really love it, and it's like that's what you waste this on. But whatever. What'd you think of La Donda? Like I don't know that one. I was like,
some
is this?
Fantano lines on there.
Yeah, I was like, is this just like a pure like Kanye play? Like I was
Right. Well,
didn't really know what I was
I
going
think
for.
another issue with Logic these days, which is it's not the number one issue, but like he has a bit of like Eminem syndrome these days, where he's like, let me cram as many syllables in as I can,
Yeah,
as if that somehow makes the music good. It's just like a wire has been crossed, and it's like Logic needs to spit as much as he possibly can, and it's like, nah, man, you didn't do this before, and the other stuff before was better than this. So don't know what it is, man, but I think it's you. And then on the other side of things, it's like, you know what? Bobby Tarantino 3 coming back, you hear decades towards the beginning. Logic starts singing a little bit. You're not that guy, pal. This isn't you.
you're not that
Uh,
guy, pal.
no.
Trust me.
Yeah, so like I think the rapping stuff is what I like the most. It's cool to see Big Lembo and C. Castro back again. Of course, they're collaborators of his that were on some of my favorite songs, like Young Jesus and Ballin'. Like he's worked with those guys before. I don't know if Kick style is anything too special, but it's cool to see those guys there. I enjoyed hearing RZA on Porta One,
Hmm.
but then it reminded me of Wu Tang Forever on Young Sinatra 4, because the RZA verse on that song is like so fucking good. Like
Hmm.
it's so much better than this one. So uh, I'm more than anything just kind of curious if he will actually give us that Ultra 85 album he's been hyping, assumingly under his new deal, because I'm just kind of looking forward to seeing what that is next. Because a song like Decades doesn't do it for me. I don't think that's a lane to go down. You hear the song Breath Control with Wiz, definitely a more modern song. Um, you know, Indica Badu, perhaps one of the better Bobby Tarantino 2 songs, also featuring Wiz. They're about to go on tour together. It makes sense that they're making another song. But like, I think Logic being traditionalist is what sets him apart. Not that he's the only one who does that these days, but it just seems to be like the best feature of his music, in terms of his musical identity. Right, Bobby Tarantino stuff has definitely proven that. So I don't know. Like we talked about this with No Pressure, where like Logic finding just immense fame and fortune has kind of left him with nothing left to say, and um, it's not as bad as it was on the Bobby Tarantino stuff. But like when he's just doing like flex, I got paper stuff. It's not good. On the other hand, though, he like will make fun of that kind of music on Vinyl Days. I was like, no, bro, like there's nothing wrong with that kind of rap. You just don't make it well. You
Yeah.
know, that is two different things.
Well, Dave, I don't really have much more to say about Logic. I'm hoping whatever we get from him next continues to like move in the right direction for him, but
Yeah.
it's just weird to like think about where he was and where he is now. Bit of a fall off. So,
Mm.
why don't we move to somebody else who I think has had a, a weird year? Drake, who dropped,
Drizzy.
oh man, dropping out of the clouds. Honestly, Nevermind, his first dance album. Uh,
Correct.
so you mentioned Joey. Not being able to clear samples, pushing the album back a few weeks. I mean that feels like a clearing out for Drake when Drake announced that he's doing this new album on Thursday night. Which I get it. No one wants to go up against Drake, and the proof is in the pudding. This is an album that is getting pretty widely panned and is the number one dance album on every platform that tracks that right now.
That's how Drake does, bro.
Yeah, just he's
doesn't matter what it is.
force.
It's gonna be consumed because it's Drake. That's how things are. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think some people were like, "Why did Drake go this route?" And it's like he's kind of been telling us that he's been, towing the line with this route since More Life. Really, I mean, More Life, we get like a whole like 5 or 6 track run where it just is club vibe house music, and it's like
Afrobeats.
Yeah, he's going for this. So I wasn't totally shocked to see him put out an album like this. I guess I was just shocked that it was this quality because I kind of found myself just like feeling like I give him credit for going for it, but I just didn't think the songs were really there. What was your response, or what was your take?
Yeah, I think that's right. Drake is not new or unaccustomed to dabbling in other genres. Whether it's something that makes a bit more sense, like is expressing his love of British hip hop by taking in grime influences. Of course, the more overt stuff like the Afrobeat, use on a song like One Dance, or more island dance hall stuff like on Passion Fruit on More Life. People know the examples at this point, but to go so hard into electronic dance music, but specifically like deep house more than anything else, a very specific like beats per minute range. It's like, wow, I give Drake a lot of credit. As you said, like Drake going this route is honestly like really impressive to me, and I think is a good sign for like Drake moving forward, because the one thing we didn't want is for Drake to just go completely stale. And Certified Lover Boy, despite being this massive hit, an album that's like still in the top 10 every week off the streams, for some reason, people are really streaming the shit out of that. And I think a big part of that's playlisting, obviously, but like people are streaming the shit out of CLB. And CLB just was like, with a few exceptions, was just not the album I wanted it to be. And, in terms of, I know how good a rapper Drake can be, and that just wasn't hitting there. The fact that honestly Nevermind is not Drake doing more bland trap beats is really cool. Mm-hmm. The issue for me, though, is like I think the Drake performance on many of these honestly Nevermind songs is just not what I want from Drake. It's not what I like to listen to Drake. I think a lot of these beats,
for Drake.
Right? I think a lot of these beats are awesome. These are great, really well made songs, and it's not just deep house. There's a bit of variety on this, which is really cool. The problem, though, like I said, is the Drake performance. I don't love Passion Fruit that much, but people really love that song. But regardless, like when Drake does his non-rapping performance, and he's done this for 10 years, this is what he does. For me, I just think some of the singing is a bit undercooked on this. And, like I'm not a Marvin's Room guy on Take Care. And a lot of these was giving me Marvin's Room vibes in the wrong way, especially like when he goes to like the higher pitch on like what was it on Falling Back right off the jump. I was like, oh man, when you hit that higher pitch, I was like, oh no, this is not that good. Like I just don't like this performance from you. And I think that just might just be a limitation of Drake. Like I honestly thought the singing on Scorpion's, the singing side of Scorpion, the R&B side of Scorpion, is a lot better than some of the singing on this. And like I just the performance, the songwriting is just a bit undercooked for me, which perhaps is a continuation of the problems with Certified Lover Boy. But it's a bit of a shame because I actually think a lot of these beats and the concept of these songs is actually kind of cool. But the Drake performance is very up and down for me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't really know if there's like a song where I'm like, man, Drake really just like crushed that. I do think like the songs that stand out to me are the songs where I really like the beats and the production on it more. Something like Massive stands out to me as one of my favorite tracks because
Kate Renata-esque, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good way to put it. And those pianos, it's just that the keyboard in that is just so inviting, and it really drives it. Another problem with these tracks is that pretty much every track I like goes on for like 2 minutes too long. You know, like this is a 52-minute album that very much probably could have been 35 minutes, and you wouldn't have lost much on this. Um, House music is trancy, and it kind of thrives off of just like these loops and people just kind of vibing to these loops. I don't know if Drake made songs that were worthy of being 5 minutes long. You know, these could have been 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I think
Mm,
we kind of get the point. Something like Text Go Green
yeah.
has a lot of potential, and I think
That
it's really
synth line
good.
is fucking awesome.
It's so good. And then it gets to be like 4 minutes in. I'm like, all right. And now I'm just listening to this loop, and I'm like, you could have cut this off at 3:30 when you were
Yeah.
finished singing, and I would have liked the song way more. So
Right.
it's I again I appreciate what he's going for. I think the production on this is great. Shout out to Black Coffee. Shout out to
Yes.
Carnage. I really love a lot of the tracks that
Carnage, yeah.
they did, but man, it really left you wanting more. And then you get the final track, and you're just like, what the fuck, man? Like, why couldn't you have done more of this? Why couldn't we have gotten more Jimmy Cooks on this, bro? I don't know. It's a little
Uh,
frustrating.
Everyone's been saying it. Jimmy Cooks is like Bound 2 on Yeezus, where like Kanye Drake is like, just in case you forgot, I still got it.
But there was
And yeah,
something that you forgot.
Jimmy Cooks, take Keith on the beat, 21 Savage, amazing guest spot once again. The
They're
one
so
of my
good together.
perhaps my I think it's my favorite line on the whole album. It's from 21 Savage, asking all these questions. Bitch, you must think me Nadeska, the chopper, like to feel on all the ops. It's a molester. It's like, oh my god, this guy is still so good. But Drake sounds awesome on that,
Yeah.
and Drake also sounds grand sticky, which I think is probably the coolest song in like the sequence, because they were being real. Jimmy Cooks take Heath beat. It's a fucking trap beat. Like, it doesn't make any sense on honestly Nevermind. Sticky does. Sticky is still like Drake rapping, but it just kind of fits the production vibe, and that was interesting to me. By the way, check the Spotify top 50 right now in the US. The most popular songs are Jimmy Cooks and Sticky. People are listening to the rapping more than the other stuff. Shocking, I know.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So there's been a lot written over the weekend since this dropped about like the production styles and the specific type of house that's
Yeah.
influenced this. You know, a lot of Baltimore, a lot of Philly influence from like the 2000s on this, which is like great. And like
Yes,
I think
definitely
you said
not
it.
modern electronic music, which is again very cool.
Yeah, which I think it just kind of emphasizes your point. Like Drake went into this with a vision, and Drake is not just kind of making the "I'm too sexys." He's going for something that's actually inspiring him. I just wish it was a little bit more. I wish he was able to like mesh together what he does so well on songs like Jimmy Cooks with
Yeah.
that vibe. Like if something like A Keeper, which I thought was another track where I was like, it's like toned down, but like this feels like a Drake thing, but he just goes so into the singing and doesn't give a performance well enough. Then you get that like interesting ending where it's like the drums are really just building up, and it's like, man, if that like led to like if it was Drake like rapping and then that like built up and then this like groovy ending might have been a much more interesting song. But we're like you said, we're dealing with Marvin's Room Drake for most of this, and while Marvin's Room, I think I like the song a little bit more than you. It's definitely not what Drake thrives on at this point in his career. So,
Right. Yeah.
what's your like favorite Drake song from like I don't know, last few projects? Like, what do you find yourself going back to most?
And well, that's the thing. So we did Drake album rankings last year. Check that out. YouTube.com/Nostalgia Pod. My favorite Drake record is If You're Reading This. That is what I want the most from Drake. But that is 2015. It's been a little while. So in terms of the recent Drake albums, I mean, we have CLB, we have Dark Lane demo tapes, we have honestly
Scorpion.
Nevermind, and then we have Scorpion back in 2018. So
I feel
honestly,
like I go back to Nonstop most.
yeah, I think Scorpion, despite its bloated nature, still has some of the highest highs Drake ever had, and of course that was his commercial peak. You mentioned Nonstop, Take Heats there on that. God's Plan, the early single, just monstrous. Nice for What, perhaps his best song of this whole era. In my feelings, like that era Drake is, I'm still gonna gravitate towards that off like it's so weird. Like the songs that became hits on CLB, like Fair Trade with Travis and Knife Talk with 21 I like just fine, and Girls Want Girls with Baby, and God, don't get me started and I'm Too Sexy or Way Too Sexy. Like those are just not like the level of hit that the hits were on Scorpion, and even like Wants and Needs with Little Baby off Scary Hours 2 became a monster track for him too. But Lemon Pepper's Freestyle with Ross is probably a better track, because that's just actually Drake really in his pen. I think my favorite song off COB was 5 a.m. on Bridal Path, which I had in my top 10 last year, because that's just really Drake doing what he's done for over a decade now, which is like actually really showing off just how strong that pen actually is. And honestly, Nevermind, these songs are not made in a way that is ever going to allow Drake to show off that pen. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you gravitate towards? You said Nonstop.
Yeah, I think like you said, Nonstop, Lemon Pepper Freestyle. Yeah. I think I'm upset. Like those are the tracks I find myself wanting to listen to most. Nonstop, probably by far my most played, like more recent Drake track, and I think that has just such like needle drop potential, as like pointed out in Euphoria, which I think it's one of like the best needle drops of the first season when that comes on. But it's like I just want that Drake, and like
we forgot a good example. His feature on Mr. Right Now with 21 and Metro Boomin.
Yes.
That's 100%. The best recent Drake song by far.
Yes, 100%. Great call. And so, like, I just wish we were getting... I again, appreciate him taking this swing, and I hope he continues to explore genres in this way and really, like, lean into it, not, like, half-ass it. But I hope he can find a way to take some of what makes him so sticky and so fun and such a star and really like mesh it with these genres. And maybe this is just the first shot and he's going to get better at it. I hope so.
Yeah, totally. And then there's still some cool ideas to take away from Honestly Nevermind. Like on Liability, there's like very intentional vocal effects on Drake's voice there. And then on Overdrive, which has a really nice beat, but also like very intentional like vocal layering of Drake's vocals on top of each other. It's like these are things that you don't really hear on Drake songs at this point. Vocal effects. Drake has never been like A$AP Rocky back in the day with like the completely distorted voice. That's not his thing. But maybe it could be his thing. Drake is so talented that we perhaps could see that. And I think, like you said, there was still a vision here that I really respect against Drake, that Drake still has like discernible vision this far into the game, this long, being at the top and having really nothing left to play for at this point. So that is, I think, probably the best takeaway from this more than anything else. I don't know what the hit is apart from Jimmy Cooks, because again, Jimmy Cooks doesn't feel like a song from this album, truth be told. So on the other hand, this is assumingly the first release on Drake's re-upped, like full-scale new deal he did with Universal Music Group towards the end of last year. People think he got like $400 million for this deal, this massive deal. The Weeknd got a similar one. It seems like they have like the two biggest deals, major label deals, those two and Taylor on Universal. So Drake's not going away anytime soon. He even said that a Scary Hours 3 is been made and will come out in the relative future after he lets this cook for a little bit. So Drake's not going away, but I think more than anything, the surprise drop of Honestly Nevermind took me aback a little bit, because I had just been thinking about this like a few weeks ago. I was like, you know what? Is Drake going to take off this year? Because CLB has just been so present on the charts, in my opinion, for really no reason, because I don't like these songs that much, but like it just has never, it's been sticking around, right? So he didn't have a need to get himself back out in the front, but he did. He does work a lot, which is to his credit. So I think this opens up new possibilities, and that is intriguing, because Drake is halfway through his 30s at this point. If we can find anything that's like a new spice for Drake to stay on top, that's really, really appealing.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Definitely. I think it's worth listening to. People have really been criticizing it, and while it's definitely not top tier Drake, I don't think it's a terrible album. So give it a listen. Let us know what you think. But David, we're gonna wrap up there. What should the people be consuming for next week?
Yeah, so next week we got the end of Obi-Wan already. Elvis, Baz Luhrmann's movie starring Austin Butler, is coming out. I'm very much looking forward to that. New record from Soccer Mommy, very exciting. Also, the return of two shows that I'm not super enthusiastic about: The Umbrella Academy on Netflix and Westworld on HBO. Oh no.
Ooh. Well, we'll be talking about that as it comes. So hit that subscribe button on youtube.com/nostalgiapod, and any place you want to go to our Twitter at nostalgiapod and follow the link tree. Follow our best of 2022 playlist, nostalgia best of 2022 on Spotify. We'll catch you next week.